Hi, this is Ricky from virtualizedplanet.com, and today I'm going to review a feature of a product that's very close to my heart. That product would be ProfileUnity from Liquidware Labs, and the feature is FlexAppDIA. So let's talk about what DIA is first, right? Yeah, before we get into what you're going to see. Basically, it's a feature of ProfileUnity, as I mentioned previously. What it allows us to do is package up applications, store those applications in a central location, and then layer the applications into desktops at logon. And we can control all of that using the policy management from ProfileUnity. Now, FlexApp's not a new feature for ProfileUnity. It's been around for some time, and you might have seen other videos recorded by me demonstrating it. But the difference was, the previous videos I demonstrated the ability for a user to install their own applications in a non-persistent desktop and have those automatically centralized, so the user gets a persistent feel with those applications. The difference with DIA is this is about the administrator packaging up applications in the first place and taking back control of the applications and allowing or denying access to those applications based on policies the administrator controls. So, what you're going to see in the video is a quick install of ProfileUnity. To be honest, ProfileUnity is quick to install anyway, right? So I'm not trying to cheat anything there. And actually, I just want to clear something up. I heard a few myths recently, and I just want to clear this one fact up. ProfileUnity does not require a SQL database. It does have a database, but that is only to store its configuration files in there, right? It's not like these other UEM products like AppSense and Res, where there's a lot of chatting going on between client and agent technology, and there's a lot of load on SQL databases and so on. That is not a requirement of ProfileUnity. I have stressed this before, and I need to stress it again. That's not how ProfileUnity works. ProfileUnity, in essence, basically deploys a configuration into a shared location somewhere, and a runtime agent picks up that configuration as the user logs on and configures the desktop experience for that user. And that's it. That's where the communication stops. So, but again, I'm kind of going off on a tangent, but ProfileUnity, really simple to set up, really thin on the ground in terms of requirements. Then what we're going to do is we're actually going to set up ProfileUnity. We're going to make an initial configuration. Now, this video is not about creating the policies and defining the profiles and the desktop experience for the users. I mean, you can find a plethora of videos out there to do that. I'm sure I've even recorded one before now, right? This is really to demonstrate this departmental installed apps feature. So we're going to focus more on that side of things. So the next thing we're going to see is me packaging some applications up, and then later we're going to use the ProfileUnity configuration management actually to assign those apps to a user, right? So before we start getting into the video itself, I wanted to kind of help you understand from a high-level perspective, the architecture and the workflow of what's happening with this environment and what you'll see in the demo. We have a few different components. We have a ProfileUnity server, Active Directory, some form of network share, a desktop, and what we refer to as the FlexApp console. Now, the first thing that's going to happen is we're going to create a basic configuration for how a desktop should look like. That is stored on a network share somewhere, and it's actually initiated through an Active Directory group policy. The next thing we're going to do is actually package up an application from the FlexApp console, and you will actually see me install the FlexApp console. What that does is, well, stores the application into this shared location, this repository somewhere, but also informs ProfileUnity that we've got some applications packaged. The next thing we're going to do is log on to a desktop, and the desktop's going to pull its profile configuration from Active Directory and this network share. And then after logon, what's going to happen is ProfileUnity is going to configure the desktop to communicate with these centralized applications, so they are layered into the desktop. So I think really, without further ado, the next thing we should do is get into it, deep dive, and start seeing this for real. So if you remember, the first thing we're going to see is the installation of ProfileUnity. Now, as mentioned before, it's a very simplistic installation. It's basically nothing more than clicking next. ProfileUnity will download and install all the prerequisites that's required to stand up ProfileUnity, right? You can see that it does mention a database, but again, that's nothing more than just an area to store its configuration, right? The architecture of ProfileUnity doesn't require that client or agent technology be constantly chatting away to a back-end server style, SQL database style architecture. Part of the configuration, we need to provide a user account and credentials so ProfileUnity can communicate with the database and so on. ProfileUnity, works in heterogeneous environments. It will work with Citrix, it will work with VMware, View, and it will work with, just bog standard desktops at the end of the day. Now, in this demonstration, what I did was I created 4 different virtual machines on my VMware workstation instance. So I could have gone and broke out Citrix or VMware View, but just for simplicity and speed, I've done everything on standard desktops within VMware Workstation. So for the purpose of this demo, I'm just going to pick other desktop technology. So we'll accept the terms and click install, and that's it, pretty much done at that point. You just got to wait for it to complete. Now, in my lab, again, I'm not using high-powered virtual machines, so things might be a little bit slower than what you see in a production environment. So the next thing we're going to do after installation is create just a generic vanilla configuration. I mean, in the real world, you wouldn't do that, right? You would actually create your desktop profile configuration and how you want your folders to be redirected, or access to certain applications, or what your printers look like, and all the things you'd expect from a user environment manager, right? Yeah. But we're not going to do that. Again, this video is not focused on that. I just want to demonstrate the FlexApp departmental installed applications feature. From here, the cool thing about ProfileUnity is you get a guided install, right? Yeah. So that initial configuration, you walk through a wizard to set it up, right? Yeah. It couldn't be easier than that, really. At the end of the day, you have to provide it a path with where ProfileUnity is going to sit, the client technology. You can choose from a template that already exists out of the box, right? Yeah. So if you know the kind of desktop environment that you're going to be working with, you can choose from persistent, non-persistent, a mixture of different operating systems. I mean, for simplicity, I'm just going to pick one of the templates, but you also have the option of creating the initial configuration manually as well. So the first thing that we need to do is actually provide or tell ProfileUnity where the home share is. So where the user's profile is going to be stored somewhere centrally, and provide it with a drive letter for home drives used in Windows 8, for example. So that is pretty much where I want my users' profiles to be centrally located. ProfileUnity also gives you the option to automate the Active Directory pieces as well. So one of the things that ProfileUnity has to do is tell Active Directory in through group policies that when an assigned user logs onto an assigned desktop, that the ProfileUnity client kicks in, it runs that logon from group policy, where to pick that up from, who to apply it to, and what configuration should run, right? So that's what you're seeing here. I'm going to apply it to an organizational unit that I've created specifically for this demo, and a group of users called ProfileUnity. Now it's actually going away and deploying those client tools within that network share. Now typically you'd put that in netlogon, because the advantage of putting the client tools for ProfileUnity in netlogon is, you know, if you've got a distributed Active Directory, netlogon tends to be replicated between, you know, different nodes in your forest or domain. So you've got a level of protection there when it comes to the client tools itself, because they're going to be replicated in a sense. So that's it. That's pretty much it. That's given us our initial configuration, right? Yeah. Again, this video is not about the configuration of ProfileUnity in terms of UEM. It's about these departmental installed applications. So now we've switched over to the FlexApp packaging desktop. So this is not the desktop users would log into. This is a specifically created desktop for the purpose of creating these centralized packages. The first thing that we need to do is actually deploy the FlexApp console, and we do that by logging on to ProfileUnity, clicking on administration, going down to the bottom of that page, and you'll see the link that allows you to download the FlexApp console for you to deploy. Now, one little piece of advice, you know, you need .NET for, well, in the version I'm working with, you need .NET 4.5.2. So again, this is a very, very simplistic install. Next, and off we go. What this will do is install that packaging console on this dedicated machine for packaging. After we've after we've completed the installation, we'll do some initial configuration. We'll point it at where our ProfileUnity instance is deployed, and we have to, you know, provide some basic configuration parameters, and I'll discuss those once we get to that point. Is done. We might as well just delete the binary installation of the FlexApp console, and we'll then open up the FlexApp packaging console. Again, what we need to do here is, I mentioned this before, we need to provide it with the location and the URL of where our ProfileUnity instance sits, and log on as administrator. So from here, what we can do is we can create packages, but we need to just provide a parameter that's going to be very important to the workings of this packaging console. Packages are deployed centrally onto VHD disks. These are the Microsoft virtual disks, and the idea is once you're packaging up an application, it streams that package into a VHD disk. That VHD disk has to be in a central location so it's accessible by the user's desktop. So we need to provide a share of some sorts where that VHD disk will be found. So that's the share I'm going to use, right? Yeah. I'm just going to double check that share exists. Yep, there it is. See? Okay, cool. For now, that's the only parameter that I really need. I just need to tell FlexApp where the VHDs are going to be stored. I'm going to click OK, and the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to actually package up an application. But before I do that, what I'm going to do is take a snapshot of this virtual machine before the application's installed. Now this is a good habit to be in, right? For anyone who does application packaging like this, they know that a snapshot is valuable, because what it means is you can revert the virtual machine to a point in time before any application was stored. Now FlexApp's actually very good at cleaning up after itself, but you never can be too sure, right? And the only way to be sure is actually reverting to a snapshot before the application was ever deployed. So I'm going to give it an application name, and the first application that I'm going to package up is a nice little file backup tool that I use at home called Super File Sync. Actually, it's called Super Flexible File Sync. I'm going to specify the size of the VHD. I mean, I know this application doesn't take up a lot of room, so I want the smallest size VHD. To be honest though, to be on the safe side, if you want, you can have it expandable so it can grow, the VHD disk can grow as the application needs it to grow. So we click the create button, and then what's going to happen next actually is the application itself is going to go through a standard installation procedure as you see it normally, right? Yeah. So here's my Super File Sync application, and I'm going to just install it as I would do normally. That's the installation done. I am actually going to launch the application just to make sure there's any post deployment configurations that need to be done. That needs to be captured. It will save some time when deploying or layering the application later. So once I'm ready, I'm going to click the finish button, right? Yeah, that's actually going to create this packaged up version of Super File Sync in a VHD virtual disk on my network share somewhere. When I'm completely happy that it's finished, I'll click save, and there you can see we've got a new application in our catalog, right? So now I'm actually going to revert the snapshot back to before I installed Super File Sync, just to make sure nothing's left over. And I don't know if you noticed this in the video, but there was something left over. The desktop icon wasn't removed, right? So, but this way we're actually making sure that the FlexApp packaging console machine is refreshed to a point in time where it never had any applications installed on it. So if we fire open the FlexApp packaging console again, log on as administrator once again, and you still see our applications there, and that's because the console's pulling that back from ProfileUnity. That's now stored in ProfileUnity. So let's deploy another application, and this is my video converter application that I use to convert all my videos into iPad format, so I can watch videos on my iPad. I'm going to go through the same process again, right? Actually, this time I'm going to suggest that we don't have the VHD compressed. So that's going to, okay, it's going to take up a little bit more room, but it's going to actually perform a bit better. So same as before, we're going to go through the installation of this application as normal. So application is now installed, but as before, let's just fire it up. Make sure there's no post deployment parameters that we need to provide the application, for example. Now, okay, I'm going to leave it unlicensed, so we're going to get a trial version of the product, right? Yeah. But if we wanted to, we could go through and start to set some default parameters within any application, and that will be stored as part of the layering process later. So as before, let's click finish. That's going to create our packaged version of video converter, and then we'll save it to our catalog, and now we have two applications in our catalog. And then as before, what we'll do is we will revert the snapshot of the virtual machine. Once again, that makes sure that we have removed any trace of the application that we've just deployed. Now what you're going to see now actually is I'm going to go back into the FlexApp console, but this time, instead of installing an application or creating a package, I'm actually going to replay from the console the applications that we've already got there. So just to make sure that they're going to work, right? Yeah. So this is not, normally what you do is associate this to a ProfileUnity policy, and the application is laid into the desktop at logon. But this gives us a way of testing the application to make sure that it actually streamed properly into the VHD disk. So you'll see the icon for the file synchronization tool, and if I open that up, you can see it runs as normal, right? Yeah. One thing it's worth stating right now, just so you get this right, because I know there'll be a lot of people that have been working with technologies like ThinApp for a long time. What we're not doing with FlexApp is isolating the application, right? Yeah. Application isolation with ThinApp has its advantages for sure. You can do things like run multiple versions of Internet Explorer on the same machine, which normally you couldn't do without application isolation functionality. But it also has its drawbacks as well. It can cause incompatibility problems, or has incompatibility problems with certain applications. With FlexApp, you're not doing anything fancy like that. You're just doing a normal installation of the application, right? Which means it should run as normal when you layer it onto the desktop that you want to work with. So I'm not suggesting, but before anyone shoots me down, I'm not suggesting this is an alternative to ThinApp. No. Actually, this is something that sits side by side with ThinApp. Package, isolate what you can with ThinApp, what you need to with ThinApp, and then use this kind of feature for everything else, because you're going to get a higher rate of compatibility because you're not isolating. Of course, there's drawbacks with that. Obviously, you can't have two versions of IE running on the same box with FlexApp. So now we've got our applications packaged. What we now need to do is add those to a configuration, a ProfileUnity configuration. This is the feature that's going to dictate who sees those applications or not. And if we go into the configuration, what we can do is actually open up the FlexAppDIA icon. That will take us into the FlexAppDIA management portion of ProfileUnity. From here, we can create essentially an app stack, right? We can drag and drop applications from our catalog into this app stack, and these are the apps that are going to get deployed to the desktop and the user that has privileges with this specific configuration. Now, with ProfileUnity, you can do things like filter based on certain environmental factors, like the type of desktop, the type of operating system, if you're on a WAN, on a LAN, or some custom filter, right? Yeah, and that's one of the key value features of ProfileUnity. You know what? For the purpose of this demo, I'm not going to do any of that. I just want to see it working. So I'm going to say to all, no filters. Now, if I apply that, right, update the configuration, and then save the configuration again. Remember, the configuration saved in the net logon area, right? Yeah, so it can be replicated. Now, if I switch over to my desktop, not the FlexApp console packaging desktop, this is my VDI desktop or my persistent or non-persistent desktop, right? And log on as a user that has visibility of the ProfileUnity configuration and is going to have that configuration applied to that person. We'll see ProfileUnity kick in, set up the profile as usual. So, you know, it's doing things like creating folder redirection or changing startup menus or adding printers, whatever you'd normally do with the user environment management. And then what we'll see is our applications appear, right? So the first one you can see there is the video converter, right? And that's because there's an icon on the desktop. And if we open that up, it runs as normal. And again, it's the trial version, so we can't do much in here, but you can see it's running right there. I can use it as if it was installed by default in this machine. And then if we click on the start menu, we'll also see the Superfile Sync application too. And that runs as normal, right? You'd expect it to, because we're not doing anything fancy. We're just layering on the application after the user's logged on. Pretty cool, hey? So, thank you so much for watching this video, and watch out for more videos from virtualizedplanet.com. And I hope you've enjoyed watching how to use FlexAppDIA, which is this nice feature from ProfileUnity, not limited to any vendor. We'll work with Citrix, we'll work with VMware, we'll work with standard desktops. In my opinion, I think this is some cool, awesome stuff from Liquidware Labs. And I'd like to see more stuff like this. Again, thank you so much. Bye bye.